Welcome to Home Biz Tax Talk. My name is Lysandra Everett. I am the Home Biz Tax Lady, where I help home business owners win the tax game. Home Biz Tax Talk airs Monday through Friday, 9 o'clock-ish. And when you tune into my show, you're going to hear about topics that are important to the home business community. Okay, so if you've been watching my show for a while, you know I set a goal for 2019 to help 1,000 business owners become profitable. And it's by doing, videos like this. And so, one of the things that I get a lot is people asking me about my journey, oh, you just blew up out of nowhere, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, trust me, it was not out of nowhere. But one of the things that I'm seeing on the streets in my little community, in my several communities that I'm in, is this talk about forgiveness. And I think people have a skewed idea of what forgiveness is and really the impact that it has. If you don't know my story, late 2014, I do believe, I can visually remember standing in my garage and I was looking around at just all of the carcasses of things that I had done and I had failed at. And I really went to a dark place and it took me a long time to get out. I had to really work. You hear about people, saying you work harder on yourself than you do in your business. And this was a time that I did. I spent 15 months and going through this process, and forgiveness is one of the things that I really had to work on. Okay. And I want to talk about it because it was really impactful in my development. And I want to share that with you so that you also understand how forgiveness really is a key to success. Okay. So let's talk about the word forgive. And I love word etymology, understanding where words come from and see how words change throughout time. So the word forgive comes from the Old English, I do believe, forgivan, which meant to pardon an offense. It means to give, to remit. And then today's definition, forgive means to stop feeling angry or resentful towards a person or an offense. So, even though those are the definitions, it's still, I think forgiveness is misunderstood. So understand that forgiveness is a choice. Okay. You choose to forgive, and people think that forgiving someone means letting them off the hook. It means saying that what they did was okay. And that's not what forgiveness is at all. Forgiveness is for you. It's for you. You are making the conscious choice to no longer carry the weight of that offense around anymore. So picture yourself walking around with a 5-pound weight. Okay. Now, in the beginning, in the first few minutes, that 5-pound weight isn't heavy at all. But as you walk around throughout the day, you got to switch hands and all of that, because after a while, that weight starts to get heavy. But if you keep carrying that weight around, it soon becomes a part of you, and you don't even realize that you're holding on to that anymore. Okay? It happens to us all. I even remember my husband, I just had one day I was just really having a bad day, and I knew I was having a bad day, so I was very quiet. And my husband finally asked me, he's like, what's going on? What's wrong? And so I told him what's wrong, and he said, you know what? It sounds like you haven't forgiven me for something. And I had to really step back and say, oh my gosh, he is right. I really have not forgiven. And this was something that happened years, earlier in our marriage. And so I had to really take a step back and say, oh my goodness, I really have not, I didn't make that choice to forgive him. I walked around with that weight for so long until I didn't realize it was a part of who I am. And then once this whole thing just came to this, there are no words to describe that technical term of me. Then, it was brought to the forefront, like, wow, I really had not made that decision. So, the thing that you have to understand about holding grudges, which is what it is, that unforgiveness is holding grudges, is that it keeps your body in a state of stress. And when you think about stress, you think about, a rough time at work or a tough time in business and all of that. But, you carry around that extra stress when you hold a grudge. And so what does stress do? That's what increases your heart rate. It increases your blood pressure. You don't think straight, right? That's what stress does for you. And if you walk around in that state of stress, for prolonged periods of time, it really will kill you, right? It really will physically impact you to the point of death. So this is why you have to make the conscious choice to forgive people for whatever they have done. Now, the one thing I also want to make clear is that I believe that forgive and forget is a lie. I don't believe in that at all, because we are human beings. We may choose to forgive, but we're not going to forget that it ever happened. To me, that is not the same as holding a grudge. Okay, when you forgive someone, to me, that's like when you see somebody in a dark alley and you're sitting in the car and there are no witnesses and you got the opportunity to run them over, but you don't, right? Because see, that's when you know that you have you've forgiven someone, that you don't really hold that anxiety, you don't hold that resentment, you don't hold any of that anymore. You just choose to let it go. But that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that you forget the offense. It just means that you don't keep replaying that scene over and over in your mind and expecting a different outcome. That's what that means. So forgiveness doesn't mean that you're saying that it's okay. It doesn't mean that you hold hands and sing Kumbaya and sit down for Sunday dinner and all of a sudden y'all besties and everything. That is not what forgiveness is at all. It's you choosing to no longer resent that person for what they did to you. And you have to make that choice. And it's a daily choice. There are some things that are easier than others. There are some days that are easier than others. But every day you have to make that choice. Because the more you make that choice, the more you choose to let it go. Do some things take longer than others? Absolutely. There's a big difference between forgiving someone who may have, wrecked your car versus someone who may have, assaulted you, who may have done something physically to you or one of your kids or something. I do believe that there are some things that are easier to forgive than others. But at the same time, we still have to go through that process of forgiveness and making that choice every day. And the other thing is, and where I had to get to what was impactful for me, that really started me on my journey of self-discovery and developing my character, is learning to forgive myself. Now, listen, this is where I think we have the hardest time as human beings, is that we will forgive other people quicker than we will forgive ourselves. And we have to stop it. Okay. This is the thing that plagued me for many, many months. Okay. I did not forgive myself. And when I started working with the coach, that was the first thing that he said to me. He said, I give you permission to forgive yourself. And it can be a very difficult thing because you have to look at you in the mirror every single morning. See, there's a difference between forgiving other people, because a lot of times you don't even have to see that person, right? But you can't run away from you. So you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror every morning and say, I forgive you. Maya Angelou had this fantastic quote that also helped get me through. And she said, she said, forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know before you learned it. Forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know before you learned it. Because a lot of times that the mistakes that we make are really because we didn't know something. We didn't have all the information. And then we look at ourselves and say, how could you not know? How could you do this? This was stupid. And we continually beat ourselves up. We continually hold that resentment against ourselves. And you have to learn to let it go. You have to learn the lesson. See, whenever I tell you, whenever you make a mistake, learn the lesson. Mistakes aren't what's wrong. People are going to make mistakes. We are going to make mistakes. That's just life. It's, are you learning the lesson from that mistake? Because if you don't, you're going to continue to make that same mistake over and over again. You have to learn the lesson. And then when you learn the lesson, you have to make the choice to forgive yourself. Because when you hold all this resentment, you really block your ability to receive. You are working really hard to achieve whatever success means to you, but that holding on to that resentment, it really blocks your ability to receive because you're too busy carrying around all this weight that you have to put it down in order for you to be able to get something else. It's just like if you've got your arms, your hands closed really tight around a dime and somebody's trying to give you $1. Well, in order for you to receive the dollar, you're going to have to open your hands and let it go. And we have to do this emotionally. We have to let it go. Now, I know there's going to be somebody that's watching this going, she is absolutely bananas. But what do I tell you? I'm telling you what I know. I'm telling you what I've experienced. I'm not talking about what I've read, because I will be really honest with you. When I was told that forgiveness was really holding me back, I went and did research. Like, this is ridiculous, because I wanted to have my anger. I wanted to have my resentment. This was mine. Okay. But as I read and I studied, there's even a person that has a whole business that is centered around helping people to forgive. Okay. So don't think that you can't make a business out of anything, but he does. He has a whole business centered around forgiveness. And that's the person I went to. And as I learned and I studied more, I realized, wow, what they're saying is true. And so as I made that decision to start forgiving people in my life that I felt had offended me in some way or another, I started to forgive them. I started to learn to accept apologies that I wasn't going to get. I had to make the choice to let it go. Now, am I still working on some stuff? Oh, you better believe it. There's some stuff that's a little bit deeper. Then, like I said, somebody, smashing my Tonka truck, right? There's some things that are a little bit deeper than that, but it still takes a choice, a daily choice to forgive. And the more that you practice that forgiveness, the more that you practice even looking in the mirror to say, I forgive you for not knowing about that, right? When you are actively forgiving yourself and actively forgiving others, then it becomes practice. That's like in the Bible where, the disciples asked Jesus, how many times do you forgive? Do you forgive 7 times? He said, no, 7 times 70, right? That's 490 times. When you do something 490 times, you're going to start to get good at it. Right? You're going to start to, it's going to become a part of who you are. So you have to make that choice, even in the most difficult situations, to forgive. And like I said, it's a daily thing. If you haven't seen the show, The Redemption Project by Van Jones, I highly recommend you watching that, because it really is people who are coming face to face with someone that has done something really terrible to them, whether it's shot a loved one or shot them. It was, some crazy stuff. But you see these people come together. And again, nobody's saying anything is okay, but they're walking away with forgiveness. And you can see the people that have been offended walk away with a different countenance about them. They look lighter. They look like they feel happier about the work that they're doing. And it all takes work, you guys. Forgiveness and building that part of your character, it really takes work, but it takes being intentional about it at first. And just like anything else, the first time you do it, it's not going to go well. You're not going to feel like, okay, I don't know if I'm doing this right or whatever. It's not going to feel natural. But as you make that choice to continue to practice that, you will see that parts of your life in your spirit get lighter. And once that gets lighter, then you open yourself up to be able to receive the things that you're working for by letting go of that anger and resentment that you're holding towards someone else. And even if that person is no longer with you, the person may have passed on or whatever, you can still forgive them and move on. You can still make that conscious choice to forgive them. Like I said, you learn to accept an apology that you're never going to get. It may be that the person is no longer with you, or the person is just an idiot and doesn't think that they owe anybody an apology. Just you can't control that. You can only control you. So learn to accept that apology that you're not going to get. Learn to forgive and start to put down that weight piece by piece, day by day, and watch yourself change. And then watch yourself begin to be happier about life. Period. Right? So that's what you have to do. So I realized this was not not a normal topic for me, but I want you to know that this is very key into you developing into the person that you want to become to achieve the things that you want to do. That's that be, do, have. You got to become someone different to have something different in order to do things that you want to do differently. Okay? To have the things that you want to have. That's what I mean. Okay? So that's it for today's episode of Home Biz Tax Talk. Again, we air Monday through Friday, 9 o'clock-ish. And you can come right here to get your questions answered about your home business taxes, and occasionally, I guess, other topics as well. All right? But mainly your home business taxes. All right? Have a great day, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.